Hey everybody, this is Silverspook, and this is the Silverspook video on Normalopathy, the death by 1,000 regularities, and how trying to go back to 2019 and that is causing mass death, and the slow, vague killer is the most deadly. So, obviously, you can probably guess what this is going to center around. That is, by the way, a screenshot from Resident Evil 1. I'm currently doing like a mini small side project for a open digital open mic event that I'm currently working on. Involves a bunch of research into Resident Evil. I'm making a mini send up, but if you've never seen the movie, this is a shot. That screenshot is from a portion of the movie where many office workers, they work in an office, we'll leave it at that, are succumbing to a virus. They're succumbing to a virus and an artificial intelligence that is dispersing halon gas, but but they are succumbing to both of those things. And I like this image because it's kind of a visual representation of what's happening when people return to offices, but kind of like it's also kind of a paradox where because people want to return, for many reasons, many normal human reasons, to their offices, to their restaurants, to their bars, to their movie theaters, to their school, put their kids back in their schools, physically in person schools, and all those other places, and go back to normal everyday routines as they had been doing, for since 2019, or some of them had never stopped. Some people had never stopped doing what they did in 2019. With I guess there are a few basically very difficult to dodge government restrictions, but most people never. Well, I should say, outside of that, most people have simply gone back to quote unquote normal. And so and it's obviously it's going to center around these major problems, these mass very big problems I've talked about at least once a month, I feel like, on the streams recently. But I want to kind of focus in on one of the major factors that's causing try not to say the word that might get this deranked in the first 30 minutes, but trying not to the problem that obviously is affecting everybody and is decreasing their health in many ways, and it's a thing that is spread in the air, and it rhymes with gyrus. I don't know if that's a word. It's a video game. I don't know if that counts, from the 80s, but anyways, so it's a thing that spreads to the air, and you probably know what it is. I spell it KOVYD because the Twitter/X algorithm doesn't hide that for some reason. That's another factor as well, which is the aiding and abetting of malicious normalcy, or what I call I'm kind of making up words because that's my job as a speculative sci-fi dystopian fiction writer, so I have to make up words that sound cool. So anyways, all day long, that's all I do. And anyway, but normalopathy is, these office workers are, of course, like in Resident Evil, just to go to the movie. This is not I have a Resident Evil video on this channel, but Resident Evil the movie, it is a I've watched like every single one of all 6 of the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil movies. Yeah, here. Resident Evil. Resident Evil Apocalypse is number 2, and then this is all out of order right here. This is shuffled cards here. Resident Evil Apocalypse, Resident Evil Extinction, Resident Evil Afterlife, Retribution, Final Chapter. I did it. I think I prove I don't have COVID-induced brain fog. Anyways, the Resident Evil movies are action movies, right? Where you can tell from the cover, there's a lot of guns. Every cover has at least one gun, sometimes 3 or 6. So there's gonna be a lot of action in it. It takes place over a short time. Obviously, it's based upon the Resident Evil survival horror video games by Capcom. I've been watching these a lot just because like they're so relatable, and also, well, we'll get into that later. But I take fashion sense from Mila Jovovich. Not on this particular video, but when I'm more dressed up. But and also I'm gonna do that for this upcoming short video for the open mic night. But Resident Evil is an action movie, so in this movie there's a lot of shooting, fights. There's kind of zombie scares, there's bio weapons, there's homicidal artificial intelligence like Skynet crossed with the horror chick from The Ring. It's like a creepy little girl. Well, she has a little bit better shampoo than the creepy TV girl from The Ring. But it's like you have this you have a homicidal AI that's trying to kill special ops corporate clone soldiers with laser grids, and there's exposed brain, exposed brain, vaguely humanoid / dogoid killer creatures that are like ripping people's skulls off, zombie dogs, and then there's a lot of shooting, right? So it's very action oriented, which is good because no shade, but that's kind of like the strong. Well, I think like the fashion and the action is the strongest points. This the script's not bad. It's it is what it is. It's a video game movie. What do you expect? It's serviceable. But the best part about it is the action. But it also deals with things like a giant all-encompassing corporation that is making has medical products, consumer goods, I think vehicles. It's a corporation that makes all kinds of things. Umbrella Corporation, but its real money makers are military weaponry and biotech and bioweaponry. And so it's very apt because that's it resembles large parts of the earth. Let's put it that way. And anyways, and so Resident Evil, but it's also about like surviving people, like obviously zombie movies generally, but it's like not people falling apart, losing their minds, and then not being who they used to be, and then kind of being alone in the world, which is how it feels when you are a COVID conscious person surrounded by 88 to 90% COVID unconscious people. If you're an immunocompromised disabled person, it's like you can scream at the normie zombies all you want, and sometimes it feels like that's all you're doing. You're screaming at a zombie like, "Hey, put your freaking mask on. Can you like take this seriously? We're like sick and dying here." And so it's like relatable to be like surrounded by brain dead lurching hunks of flesh that used to be humans. Or brain dead lurching hunks of flesh that are not responsive to actual rational science-based argument and discussion, even for their own sake of their own health and their own well-being. So that's why. Anyway, I've talked about that before. Focusing on the normalcy. So life was disrupted. in 2019, 20 beginning of 2020, right? There were lockdowns. We were told. I also just watched this movie called what was that movie called? Holly, do you remember the name of that guy in that high school movie? Shoot. It's like Last to Leave. I cannot even remember the name, but it's another good movie that is it is I've only seen two movies that are actually based in the actual reality of the pandemic, as far as I can gather, and those two movies are one of them I made a video about. It's called Songbird. Yeah, Songbird is a movie that is a movie that I did a video about, that is that is like one of very few that are show the reality of the pandemic, as I talked about before. Like The Glass Onion is a movie that with Daniel Craig and what's his name, Daniel Craig and Edward Norton, etc., that has a brief scene, like a 2 minutes that talks about masking, right, in the pandemic. But this is a whole movie that deals with all those topics, and I did a whole video about that. And then there's one other movie, and I cannot remember what it is, but it's pretty good. It's like a horror movie. It deals with during lockdown X's people's lives being disrupted, and the main character is a history teacher played by Last the Night. Yeah, Last the Night is this movie where the main character is as Megan Fox's ex, this dude. He's actually, his ex in the movie somewhat resembles Megan Fox, in fact. And in this movie, a disgruntled history teacher is in lockdown. He's kind of like getting cabin fever, kind of losing his mind. He actually is like clinically, I think, diagnosed with psychosis, or he's clinically diagnosed with some mental health disorder. Like he actually like he's been in lockdown, and he's like hasn't had contact with people. He's a high school teacher, so he's Zoom teaching a class to 4 high school kids who don't like him very much. They're making snide jokes behind his back. They're like not showing up to class, or not very interested in his talk. He's teaching history. He's teaching American. He is a 6'3" Jeffersonian looking, probably listen to Joe Rogan podcast type, 40-something-year-old Caucasian guy, and he's teaching a black 16-year-old and young Asian girl, a Hispanic boy, and and then a young white girl, and they're not super into hearing about American history, but he's getting more and more upset about it. One of them is kind of into it, and so he's having a really bad time, and then he's in lockdown. He's having a hard time teaching. He didn't really like teaching before. Now he's like more isolated. He's getting more isolated, as you are wont to do, listening to farther and farther more radical manosphere podcasts. And he's a college professor. He's like a 40-something-year-old, but he's definitely like, and he has like anger issues that he's not dealing with in a very healthy way. His wife has left him in the pandemic. Which is very common, as Holly pointed out. Like many of Holly's friends, of friends, acquaintances have had husbands, or women with husbands who, when the pandemic started, shortly after, they have divorced and they've broken up. This is obviously, it's very, it's part of the 70%, 65 to 70% of straight cis men who are not in relationships, have been dumped, and have not gotten back into one. But part of that has to do, that is one of the disruptions of the pandemic. One could argue, and one would probably rightfully argue, that it's good that people are out of not healthy, not productive, not good relationships, But that is the this movie deals with the disruption, but and then also it's a horror movie where and then he goes on a homicidal shooting spree. Um, but it deals with the disruption of two lives. The kids' lives are also disrupted. It deals with the people, and one of the signals that this guy in the Last of Night movie, um, was that scene with this. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I probably won't be able to find it, but there's a scene where this dude is he's talking to his ex-wife. His ex-wife has custody of their kid, and he wants to have some face-to-face time with his kid. She drives up in her car, right? In a parking lot somewhere, because he doesn't have the court. He doesn't have any court approved time. This extra court approved time. She's giving it to him because she's feeling nice. So she drives into this parking lot in a Walmart or a Safeway. He drives up. He gets up. She gets out of the car with her mask on. Right. This is in 2021, 2022, when there were still mask rules. He gets out with no mask. And then she's like, "Okay, well here's your daughter. Now you've seen her, and the daughter's still in the car. Are you happy now?" And then he's all like, "Can't she get out and can we talk and let's hang out?" And then she's like, "Where is your mask?" Right? And then he's like, "It's in the car." And he's like, "It's so nice to see you. It's nice to see." She's wearing a mask, right? And the guy is being a dick. He's like, "It's nice to see your forehead and I can see your eyes. I can see your hair. That's nice." I mean, he's like kind of like implying, "Why are you wearing a mask?" Right? In a dick way. And then she's just like not increasingly unhappy with this guy. But it's interesting because how it signals that like this guy, who is like openly kind of like defying, at this point these were kind of like actual government restrictions, but he's like actively trying to be in 2019. And he's also he is expressing his level of a-holishness and disregard for others with his lack of masking. That's one thing I like about it, right? Because he's one of the, I mean, he's a nasty character in the movie, and but it's revealed his lack of care for other people in general is signaled by his lack of his mask in the movie, which is a thing that you don't see in a lot of Hollywood movies, among other things. And so kids' lives are disrupted. Everyone's in lockdown. Kids aren't having the normal school time. They decide to do this illegal property trespassing event, and then I won't tell you the plot, but the point of that is that like I'm trying to get to that this is it highlights the way that people's lives are disrupted. People's lives are changed. People were not happy with that. People dealt with the disruptions to their lives in really unhealthy ways. Now this is like an extreme where this guy like actually he has pre-existing problems. He has anger problems, kind of a toxic masculine sort of dude, difficulty connecting to other people, isolated, kind of like he could be a lone wolf, 3-name shooter dude, It does come up, it's like, one of the kids in his class says, "You know what's great about lockdowns? One of the good things about the pandemic and the lockdowns is that we haven't had any mass shootings in schools." And it does come up, and that is one of the positive changes of that. There's actually many positive changes that I've talked about frequently, but either way, let's get back to the topic though. So so the normal was disrupted, right? The normal was disrupted. People couldn't go, like I already mentioned, to restaurants, to bars, to theaters, to their normal jobs where they saw the people they wanted to see with no masks, right? See their whole face and not just their forehead. Like, it's interesting that like there are cultures where people, like, many people have coverings, like in some Muslim cultures, Arab cultures, and not just those, there are others too, where it's normal, right? It's normal to not see people's faces, right? And like, not some people do, some people don't. It's women's choice in many Islamic communities. Um, but not just there. There's other ones as well. There's like in hospital settings. I mean, historically, when they were somewhat functional and not completely batshite off their entire out of their entire mind, the hospitals that don't have masks, a lot of them haven't had masks for like a year. Anyway. So it was normal to see George, like I've brought it before. It was normal to see George Clooney on ER in a mask, right? I was just watching another show. This is just Silver Spook Place. IMDb 52 pickup. I'm just throwing all my cards out there right now. I just got all of my movie collection. That's all I do is watch movies. That's another artifact of the pandemic, is you're just locked in your house watching movies. No, we're not locked in our house watching movies, but we watch a lot of movies because that's what you can do. And order random tchotchkes, crap, and Funko Pops on Amazon. No, we don't do that. We do order stuff, but anyways, Containment is a TV show that deals with the actual pandemic breakout, which results in lockdowns, but in a localized area. It's a TV show that came out on the CW in 2016, so actually pre-pandemic. And I first watched the show when it came out, and I liked it a lot. It has like the characters have really good chemistry. The writing's like very tight. It's very not the best, but it's like near the pinnacle of the prestige TV era, the golden age between the late noughties and like 2015 or 2017. I don't know, somewhere around there. Then things started getting really bad and extra strikey, in the sense of WGA SAG strikes. Well, I mean, it's been bad. It's been economically bad for the underpaid workers in the TV and film industry. But the kind of like the shows, the pre-enshittification of the digital streaming platform era shows is what I'm talking about, because I feel like it really fell downhill. There were like 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 season shows, and now there's it's like you get 5 episodes, 8 episodes one season, and and thank goodness they leave that show up long enough for you to watch it nowadays, right? They take shows down like a month or a week after they put shows up sometimes. So anyway, long story short, so Containment was a show that was pre-pandemic, but it dealt with a pandemic where a 100. This is also important because the Containment comes back to my point about slow, vague killers being the most deadly. I'm just trying to get a picture of this. So in Containment, there is a virus. This is the cover of that show. There's a virus. I believe that's the CDC doctor that is working on trying to find a cure for this virus. It breaks out in Atlanta, which is also where the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is headquartered in the U.S. And so in Containment, a virus is spreading. Starts in a hospital. It goes out into a young teacher with the school children are there, and they get locked down in the hospital with the virus. They get locked down in the hospital because everyone has to be quarantined. The people who get everyone in the beginning, they're doing contact tracing, trying to find every person who was in contact with. It's actually very much like it's very similar to what happened at the beginning of COVID. Going back to every contact, to every person who might have been in contact with the patient zero. Where they find patient zero, or what they think is patient zero, and then they try to lock everybody down inside that hospital. But they're unable to control it. It spreads out from there. They lock down a 2 mile by 2 mile square of the city of Atlanta. It has like thousands and thousands of people in there, and they cannot leave that cordon sanitaire. There's like a wall constructed of 3 high stacks of 40-foot shipping containers that people cannot get out of, and they basically build a wall around, and they have the police and then the National Guard keep people locked inside of this area. So it's, it gets really intense, and There's people, husbands and wives are separated by this wall. People can't leave. The virus is spreading and killing people. This is a virus that, if it's also it's interesting as well, because in containment there is again, it's pre-pandemic, right? So people are masking, and there's like 4 to 6 feet. You got to stay 4 to 6 feet from me. No coming within X distance. Like the cops all have these face plates, right? And so and the virus only spreads by blood, sweat, saliva, semen, and everybody jokes about that. Urine, it's only fluid, right? And it's only droplets, so there's no airborne. It's not airborne in this. But that's like the whole show is like, it's constantly thinking about, oh, how am I gonna stop this spread? The cop puts his helmet down. There's one scene where like a sick kid is like running away from the police. Unfortunately, it's a very propaganda-ish, but multiple main characters are police. But one of the sick kids like is running out of a house trying to get away, and then he gets caught, he kind of stops right in front of a cop, and the cop pulls down his visor right as the kid like has a huge sneeze all over the visor, and it's like, if he hadn't dropped that down, he would be sick. Or he would be dead, because this virus in containment is 100% deadly, and it kills you in 48 hours, right? And so people are like, gotta stay apart, no touching, or trying to keep kids from touching, trying to keep everybody, from keeping their masks on, Some people take their masks off, right? That's part of the show, is people who take their masks off, they die, right? Young kids, there's a group of young kids in this show, and they go to, like, the government announces there's this deadly virus. We all need to stay safe, stay 4 to 6 feet apart, social distance. Do not associate with, and don't go to any unnecessary social events. Go return home immediately, right? And cover your face. If you feel sick, go to the hospital, where the CDC will, take care of you, which is you have to go into quarantine. And anyway, so this group of young kids are like 14 to 17-year-olds, or I think maybe like, just young kids, like I think teens or early 20s kids. And they're all going to this big rave party where there's disco lights, and they're, listening to, I guess would have been Skrillex then. I don't know what it is exactly, but they've got their red cup alcohol, and they're partying in somebody's house, right? It's like Atlanta house party, but it's against the rules. And there's a pregnant girl. Who is played by this character, this person, and she's like, I don't know if I should go to that party, because they told us to stay home, and there's a really bad virus going around. And people don't know exactly what it is yet, but it's kind of like there's government orders to stay home because it's very dangerous. And the kid's like, your life's gonna be, you're such a party pooper. Like one of the party kids is like, one of the people who wants to go have the party, right? Is like, you're such a party pooper. You're such a homebody. You're such a dork, right? You're such a introvert, whatever. You're such a fuddy duddy. Why don't you come out and have a good time with everybody? When you give birth, your life's gonna be over anyway. So, I mean, that's also an attitude. Anyway, and so in containment, the kids go to the party, right? Kind of throw caution to the wind. They go to the party. When they get to and then after the party, they all start coughing and sneezing. And within 48 hours, they bleed out their eyes, their nose, their mouth, and they're all dead. Because it's a 100% kill rate. But it's very cathartic, because for, as me and Holly, and for us who, we have not been to any parties, no restaurant, no theater, no nothing. And like I brought up many times on this stream, we haven't seen our family in person. We haven't seen we've seen people, but not in person. we've been around other people masked in grocery stores and laundromats and that kind of thing. But we have not, because we don't. Most of my family, 90% of people are not wearing masks, taking COVID precautions on a regular basis. So, 75% of people lie about their COVID positive status when they get sick. So you wouldn't even know, It's like, so I'm like, that's part of why, and anyways. But that scene where like all the people who want to go to their party and just like, oh, it's not that bad. Just come on, you gotta live. You can't just you have like a mental health disorder. You're hurting your mental health by isolating, right? That's what people will tell us. People like us. It's not really COVID cautious. It's more like, medical science real. It's like science realists. I don't know. Isn't science real? I mean, like, do you take like it's like basic reality, just realist? I don't know. Living into reality. I don't know what to call it. But anyways, because 90% of people don't. They prefer a fake pretend normalcy, right? And so when seeing all the people that go to the party get sick and die, it's like, oh yeah, well that's what everyone is doing to themselves. But the thing is, right? That's the other part of this normalopathy that I'm talking about, is that in containment, right? In containment, the virus kills you really fast. It's really extreme, like Resident Evil, right? Like I was talking in Resident Evil, the Resident Evil T virus turns you into a zombie, a mindless flesh-eating ghoul, in about 48 hours. It's like less. It's like a day or less. I think Michelle Rodriguez, when Michelle Rodriguez has her first fight with Mila Jovovich, it's well, they both fight throughout the whole movie. But when they have their first actual fight, it's less than 3 hours, because that's the amount of time that the Umbrella Corporation Special Forces team has to evacuate or handle their situation at the Hive, which is the underground mega corporation super lab/underground city. And so it's 3 hours, right? So the T virus kills you in 3 hours. The containment virus kills you like you're like you're dead. You're a zombie, undead, or you are in containment. You've bled out. You look like you look like a character from like a metal music video, just blood running out your eyes. You know what I'm saying? And so it's very extreme, right? So the time at which it takes for the virus to kill you is very rapid. It's very obvious. And it's Hollywood. I mean, these are entertainment, right? These are movies. These are this is the CW TV show. You want something visually striking, right? Resident Evil, it's like, people, it's a Hollywood movie. People gotta, be entertained. And so seeing people getting sick and then, oh my God, it's turning into a zombie. Some people turn into like smaller versions of the Akira monster. Like the one turns into X in Resident Evil Apocalypse. Mila Jovovich's buddy dude gets scratched, and then his arm starts growing tentacles, and his flesh turns into this like model jumble of muscle and eyes and hair and all random organs coming out of his shoulder blades. And so it's that's entertainment, because viruses generally don't do that. Cause you to start turning into Cthulhu, or a super mutant or something. The viruses, the colds just give you colds. Flu, causes chills and more extreme symptoms, but it doesn't visually alter you that much, right? Now, there's things like chickenpox. They have very striking visual. Chickenpox is very striking visual symptoms. Smallpox, this hand, foot, and mouth disease that has very specific, expression, and things like strep throat, right? The pathology, the strep throat um, symptoms. You can see that. You can like shine a light into a throat. My mom used to do that. And you can see the little bubbles, right? You can see the little white circles in the back of your throat when you get strep throat. If you got flesh-eating strep, which everyone's getting, by the way, strep A, flesh-eating streptococcus is making a major comeback along with many other viruses. All the viruses. The Black Plague is back as well. Come to finish the job in Europe. And so the viruses that which is also having a 45x exponential measles outbreak, Europe is right now. The viruses, most viruses tend to don't have very large visual expression, right? Like I've just said, there are some viruses that have more, right? Smallpox had a very high kill rate. Ebola, I don't want to show any pictures of Ebola, but Ebola is the closest thing. I think that in containment, I believe it's a avian. It's like N7H5 or it's one of the avian flus in the show containment that has been bioengineered. It's been bioengineered to have hemorrhagic effects similar to Ebola. Like Ebola actually will, it causes your body to, actually start literally like falling apart eventually, if I'm not mistaken. Severe headaches, organ failure, bleeding. Yeah, so like most viruses don't cause your body to just start like collapsing with blood shooting out, like just bleeding out of random parts of your body. But Ebola is one of them. The flesh-eating strep will also cause like really, well, it doesn't always, but it can cause like your fingers can like start turning black, turning into like necrotic zombie-like tissue, right? And so, and it will kill you. The flesh-eating strep can kill you in less than 24 hours. Many people are getting it, and at a very high rate. So the bleeding, and so anyway, so containment virus is an avian flu bioengineered to be crossed with something like Ebola, so that it's a flu droplet spread virus, right? Liquid droplet spread virus. That's pretty contagious, and then it causes. I think the Ebola death rate is like 40. It's very high. It's like 40+% kill rate. People, if you get Ebola, you have 50 chance of living, I think, depending on circumstances. And so this avian flu crossed with Ebola basically caused people to get, it's very contagious, and then they bleed out and they die. And the containment virus is 100. Everyone who gets it, every single person dies. I think eventually they find like one person who doesn't die. But it's like a 99.9% death rate. It's a death sentence once you get this virus. Anyways, so my point is that, because there's a desire to return to normal, which is what people, like we already talked about that. But if there is a virus, if there is an illness out there, right, that is as deadly as Ebola or worse, right, and it kills you very quickly, right? So within 48 hours, if T virus 3 hours, containment virus within 48 hours, often less than 24 hours. Ebola, what is how long does it take Ebola to kill you? Average 10 days. When you get Ebola, you will be dead in approximately 10 days. Okay, so that's close to the T virus, and it's a little slower, but that's very fast compared to most viruses. Strep A to kill you. Strep A with the highest risk of mortality is the first 48 hours. Most deaths occur within 7 days of infection. The highest risk. So if you get strep A in 7 days, um, and you're very high at risk in the first 48 hours. So because what it can do, the strep A is it can begin eating your brain tissue. It can eat any part of your body. It can just start eating random your heart. It rapidly duplicates, and it causes it goes into your bloodstream, and it can basically go anywhere, go in your lungs, and so you can die real fast from it. There's this report of this guy who said, thank goodness I he looked at his fingernail, and his finger, the tip of his finger was turning black. If he hadn't seen that his finger was turning black, he would have been, he was a very high chance he could have died like within 5 hours. So anyway, but long story short, so if your finger turns black, go to the doctor. Like for no reason. I mean, if you dropped a brick on your finger when you were building your underground bunker where you're gonna do bioweapon experiments, okay? If you dropped a brick on your finger, then that's probably just because you did massive trauma to your finger, physical trauma, not because you have strep A. But if it just like randomly, it's really cold right now. That's why I keep shivering. But anyways, there's one more. Leptospirosis is a virus that will kill you in about a month or less sometimes. Just a random one that I know. There's many others. But anyway, so long story short, so all those viruses that we talked about, they kill you very quickly. They have like, and when you're dead, it'll be obvious, right? And if an Ebola outbreaks have been contained, like containment is based upon, I think in Ghana there was I don't know if it was Ebola, but it was a very deadly virus that had an outbreak in that, it's the same time period, and they had to contain it. There were other outbreaks that had to be contained. I mean, a lot of them are in Africa or non first world countries, but they had been contained before. And so the containment is like, what if we had a really bad virus breakout in like Paris? I think it was based on a previous work called Cordon, and it's like, what would it be like to have a major outbreak where you have to lock down a whole city in somewhere in the U.S. or somewhere in Europe or Canada, and but the thing that does show is that like if there was a very 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 deadly virus like Ebola or the containment virus, the response, it probably would be something like that, right? It would be a really extreme response. People would be really scared, right? People are freaking out. Some people are trying to jump over the wall trying to break into the lockdown cordon sanitaire quarantine zone or break out of it, right? People are like, there's kind of chaos and havoc going on inside. People are really upset about it. This is probably what would happen. And people are upset about the pandemic restrictions, right? A lot of people started doing mass protests and like driving trucker convoys. It's notably a lot of far right wing and right wing protests. Not some of them, not necessarily exclusively, but it kind of tended in that direction. Calling for my freedoms back. And so like that. So we've seen what happens when COVID style pandemics happen, and there's many changes. This society is shaken in many ways, right? But if you had a local lockdown, I don't know if the containment ever has an actual resolution, but it does. They do have they show all the struggles. People have to go into quarantine. They have to study it. They have to learn about it, which is what we've been doing. I mean, some people have been learning about COVID-19. And some people have willfully or unwillfully been disinformed. Let's put it that way. Some people are informed, and then they choose to ignore the data and information, right? But we've been studying it for a while. So the process of what is it is it's not, we don't know everything, right? But we know 2020 to 2024's worth of information about COVID. The world has seen it. Many doctors. There have been thousands of studies, longitudinal studies. There have been studies on children, studies on elderly. Not everything, but a lot is known. A lot is known about it, right? And I won't go into all of that right now because I did that in previous streams. Um, but the so in the lockdown, so in the short, rapid, very visible sort of killing virus like Resident Evil, like Containment. There's many of these TV shows, right, and movies. Uh, the people see, oh my god, this thing is killing us, like in this scene. Well, this is, like in a zombie. Oh my god, these people are turning into zombies. Oh, I gotta stay away from that, right? I gotta get safe. I gotta get away from this, right? When people really know what's happening, um, and they can see it with their two eyes. Oh my god, that's a zombie. I cannot be around this. I gotta get out of this area. I gotta stay safe, right? Oh my god, that guy's bleeding out of his eyeballs, right? If you're in a town, right, or in a city, and like you walk down the street and there's dead bodies everywhere, like half the population has dropped dead, like like there are no cars driving, like right, then you'd be like, oh my god, I got bit. This is serious. Or you go into crisis mode. Are you going to emergency mode? I mean questionable now. I guess questionable now. But if it was really really serious like that, right? Like in the beginning of the pandemic, the people were freaking out. All the shelves were devoid of toilet paper. Not gonna help you in a aerosolized viral transmission. I don't know what you're gonna wrap toilet paper around your head. That was really weird. There's actually some investigation into that. It's basically like hysteria crazes and Amazon wanting to make tons of money, jacking up the prices and price gouging on ridiculous toiletries. You're not gonna run. The COVID doesn't spread by people shooting projectile diarrhea at each other. I don't know what the point of that was. But anyway, you need water, you need food in the lockdown. Hand sanitizer, that makes sense. Rubbing alcohol, that didn't around until later though. Everybody bought all the toilet paper. Anyway, so what a shitty decision. Anyways, but people. What I'm saying is that like if the virus, like if the outbreak began in like in many places in January, right? If COVID-19 killed at the rate of the containment virus or the T virus, or Ebola, everyone would have been dead by the end of January, right? Everyone would have been dead, and if the people who weren't, anyone who wanted to live, right, would have gone with the cordon sanitaire, gone with the lockdowns, right, and then either one or two things would happen, right? This is why Ebola doesn't kill. Like Ebola has been around for a while. Ebola has been around for years, right? Ebola is super deadly. It is fairly contagious, right? I know it's not as contagious as COVID-19 or measles, but it's contagious, right? There are the other contagious viruses that are very deadly, contagious ailments that are very deadly. But Ebola hasn't killed, like in 12 Monkeys, right? I have a video also about 12 Monkeys, another movie involving pandemics. It doesn't kill everybody. Ebola has not killed millions and billions of people because Ebola, because it presents so fast. That actually comes up in the show as well, which is one of the pandemiologists, the federal containment specialist, right, who has worked on containing other outbreaks, including in Africa. She says this is such a stupid virus. This virus is so inelegant, right? It's such a dumb virus because, if a virus was smart, you don't want to kill your host, right? Not right away, right? Because if the goal of the virus, which is a replicating organism, right, that is trying to produce more of itself and survive in an evolutionary landscape of all the human bodies and other mammals like bats and cats and dogs and tigers that are all getting COVID and dying, by the way. So if you're an animal lover and you're not masking, you don't love animals. Um, and so so the the virus wants to, I mean, it doesn't necessarily, the virus doesn't necessarily like want something the way that you want an ice cream cone, or you want to go to a rave and get sick and die. But despite the best wordings and the irritants of your COVID cautious immunocompromised partner who is now leaving you because you're not masking, right? So actually, this is one of the reasons why a lot of men were again, many men were left by their partners. Just on average, women are masking about 1.5 to 2 times more often than men, just on average, for many reasons. If they have children, it's way higher. They take things even more seriously. Trying to protect their children, which is a normal thing to do, right? And so many men were broken up with over their refusal to mask, right? You would see couples out, and the wife would be masked, and the husband would be not, right? And then weeks after that, and then they wouldn't be together anymore, and the wife would be with another woman alone in some other arrangement with non-binary people or what, but not with that man anymore. And that's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. Just because statistically, I forget the exact numbers, but it's about 60-70% of the time, if somebody was masking, obviously, like across the board, there's been a drop in all masking, sadly, but the men are less likely to, in general, take those precautions. So and like that's fine for you, but how about protecting the people around you in your household? How about in general, like everyone that you're in contact with, in the world? And so anyway, so the viruses that spread very quickly, right? The viruses that spread quickly, that helps, right? So having a high R, right? So it's like the R of a virus is a measurement of the R0 is an estimate of the contagiousness, that a function of human behavior and the biological character of pathogens. It's not the severity. So the R, this is just a technical term. It basically just means how many people are like likely to be infected based upon every person who is infected, right? So what is R of like COVID-19? Each variant has an increasing rate of infection. The 2020, from January 1st to February 7th, COVID had a 1.5 to 6.68. But it's gone up since then. Of course, the Omicron was very high, and then the latest, the Parola or the J variant is way higher than that. Measles, I think, is one of the most infectious, 12 to 18. Let's see, R of COVID, Parola. All right, I don't know if they can know that. What is the R0? Is R0 of 4 to 8. So anyway, but long story short, it doesn't really matter exactly what it is, but what it is it's very high, right? But the other thing that matters too is the death rate. So if your virus spreads very fast, but then the host dies, like I said, like Ebola, within 10 days, or in a very short period of time, right? Then the probability of the virus getting to new people drops, right? Whereas if somebody gets a virus and then is able to spread that virus over a longer period, survives longer, able to spread that virus longer, right? Then it increases the total survivability of the virus, right? It's kind of like, if you think of it like, if every time you got imagine you're like riding horses, right? That's a bad example. If every car that you got into, right, blew up, in 15 minutes, it would be really efficient way to get around. I mean, for some odd reason, I don't know why exactly, right? But it's like, because the virus is the virus is the host. The virus is the vehicle. Sorry, the people that are the hosts are the vehicle that the virus is riding, right? It's a parasitical, and it's an organism that exists in other organisms, right? So if it kills, it's like killing your own ride, right? It would be like stabbing your own tires, right? You're not gonna get very far if you're like, you know, throwing random crap and, like, cracking eggs on your own radiator, right, on your own car, right? So that's what the doctor meant in containment when she said this is a dumb virus. It kills you so fast. It kills you so fast, and it kills all the hosts, 100% of the hosts. That's not a very efficient virus, evolutionarily speaking, right? But and so also, what's up, Victor? And I think I saw Grant. And so the virus is very so a virus that kills is not, if it is not efficient for survivability of the virus. But if somebody bioengineered a virus to kill quickly, then it would be doing the job of killing people, right? And they do exist bioengineered virus. The U.S. has 330 plus labs around the world, just as one example. Bioweapons and a biotech lab where they create all kinds of things and store all kinds of horrible viruses, including anthrax, and have modified the spike proteins on SARS viruses. Over 20 years ago, the U.S. was already doing that. Just as an example of how you might have a very deadly virus, that kills very quickly. That is also, but how you could get one. That's not necessarily through evolution, but through artificial engineering. But anyway, that's not what COVID is, right? But actually, right? So some people, so in movies, the bioweapons, right? Like umbrella corporations designed biologically engineered viruses, like the T virus, and then there's the G virus in Resident Evil 2. These viruses kill really fast because Hollywood, and you want to see big effects. You don't want to wait 6 years to Milo Jovovich to see, if Michelle Rodriguez was like, you see Michelle Rodriguez at the beginning of Resident Evil, right? If Michelle Rodriguez has to come back and fight Mila Jovovich like 6 years later when the virus finally kills her, right? Like COVID might take you a year to kill you, right? Or 6 months or 2 years to kill you, right? And if Michelle Rodriguez is like, hold up, I'm not gonna be zombified for 2 years. So Mila, I'll come back in 1.5 years, and then we'll fight. That's not very good for the movie, for the context of telling a tight narrative storyline that has like a beginning, middle, and end in like an hour and a half. So that's why what people think, and this like pop culture impacts what people think, in general. So why people this is why plagiarism software often misconstrued as generative AI or some kind of 2001: A Space Odyssey, but good, works, is because people watch so many sci-fi movies about AI, and they believe stuff that is not true about how it actually is, because the mundane actual world of what is past is called the algorithms and the pattern recognition, pattern matching software that is in the what's called generative AI is not what it is. It is not Skynet. It is not, or even getting close to that. It is not the Terminator, or some Black Mirror episode, or Her, starring Scarlett Johansson. Right. But anyway, so my point is that like the movies do impact the way that people think about the real world in real ways, whether we like it or not. Right. And so when it comes to the biological, when it comes to viruses and pandemics, people think of the zombie movie, right, where everyone gets infected, and right, like I talked about also with Pearl Monkeys, everybody gets infected, and like within a week the whole world's infected, right? Oh, so it's either like in a day, a week, or a month, often, right? That's how long it takes. I just watched a movie yesterday that was it was called crap, I can't remember what it's called. But it's a movie. It involves a viral outbreak. It involves a global viral outbreak, and everyone gets sick and dies in like a month or 2 months. That's how it usually happens, right? And the people get sick and die. They either die violently and really badly, really quick, or they turn into zombies. I mean, it's cinematic, right? If people just like die quietly with no visible change outwardly, and like when you die from like AIDS, or what you often it will die from pneumonia or HIV/AIDS, and then you get some kind of pneumonia that finally kills you. There's not a lot of really visible outward, impacts. Like Ebola and like Black Plague, these they have like more visible. Oh, you died from that disease, right? But a lot of viruses, if you die from herpes doesn't necessarily kill that many people, but if you die from towards the end of your life, you die from one of these pneumonia, RSV type viruses, there's not gonna be a lot of visual indicators that you can like put on camera and put into like celluloid, and keep people eating their popcorns, right? Watching that, right? Zombies like, oh my god, you got a really bad virus, man. You're chomping on your brother's head now. Wow, that's horrible. It's emotional, it's impactful, it's visually stimulating. But most viruses don't kill that way. If they kill, right? They don't, and it's not just because you're not dead. That doesn't mean the virus didn't have an impact. COVID-19 is mass disabling millions, if not billions, of people right now as we speak, right? It is making their lives hell. Many people's lives hell. There's like many threads about this that you can find. It feels like your skin and your body can feel like it's on fire. You can't move. You can't talk. You can't breathe. You can't think. You can't remember things. And I've talked about this frequently on these streams. It's like torture, right? Imagine 5 or 10 or 15 years of torture till you die. Wouldn't it be some people might prefer to? I know people who said I'd rather just die rather than be so disabled. Now, that obviously, like, there are many disabled people who live and have lives and want to keep living those lives and not be euthanized, like what the Netherlands is doing, killing people who are, well, number one, autistic people are not need to be cured, but the Netherlands is literally euthanizing, systematically killing off autistic people. I'm not joking about that. Canada's, many Western countries are, Canada one of them, killing off disabled people and pushing them to do MAID or in really, really malicious ways, like telling people like your family doesn't want you. It's just really horrible stuff. So I mean, I'm not saying that like being disabled is like a terrible thing, but like getting more disabled when it could be prevented in a way that will really cause pain to you, right? That is not the same as death, but it's also in some ways can be a fate worse than death, especially if you're surrounded in a society, right? If you're in a society that has very little empathy, right? And that doesn't care, which is what we know. You're in a society that doesn't, because 75% of people hide their zombie bite, right? 75%, like I said, 75% of people statistically will not tell people at a party, in their workplace, that they have COVID-19 if they have a positive test, right? And 60% of COVID infections are asymptomatic, or people get them without knowing that the other person had it, right? It was 40, it's gone up now, in part because of the destruction of immune systems. But I'm getting off the central topic. So but those are just important information people should know, right? So that even more reason to be taking those precautions seriously, like masking, distancing. Vaccines help, but it's not a silver bullet by any stretch of the imagination. And trying to get as clean air as possible collectively, and if you can't get it collectively within your own group or individual spaces. And so anyways, so what I was saying was that a virus that kills quickly, right, really fast, would probably be eliminated, and Ebola has been eliminated, right, because it kills so fast, people are like people see they can visually. It's kind of like the problem of I think it's called the problem of hyper objects. Hyper objects are objects like climate change, like artificial intelligence in some ways, really big like long scale pandemics can be like those, especially silent, stealthily slow killer pandemics. Um, Hyper objects are things that human beings are bad at reacting to because they're so vast and wide, right? Like climate change, um, that people don't they can't individually they don't have they're different they have a difficult time responding to those things in the human time scale, in the human space scales, right? You can't really see, taste, and touch the climate change. Right? Like, well, be like people say, oh, it's really cold today. Climate change is, a scam, right? People, climate deniers will routinely say that, right? It's kind of like going like, well, I don't see bodies piling up in the street. I don't see hospitals completely overrun right now. I don't see anybody sick on my street. COVID's gone, right? That's the COVID denier. It's very similar to the climate denier, right? I don't see anything that indicates that we have a serious problem. So let's just go back to normal, right? And so right. So that's what my kind of point is, that with that is that like so Ebola, containment, Resident Evil, these extremely serious, rapidly killing viruses would be eliminated by the population because they go, holy crap, because it's hard to deny when there's a huge pile of Ebola bodies that something's you can't use that everything is normal, right? Human or not all humans, but many short-term thinking humans, let's say that the Westoid human that doesn't see like deep time, bigger picture, collective, large scale in space and time phenomenon, right? Like indigenous people actually had multi-thousand year, very advanced, old growth forest, food garden farm. Like they were also bioengineered, but in a different way. They were massive sprawling gardens that looked like nature to Europeans, but they didn't understand that these were actually engineered. These were scientifically produced by indigenous people of North America. But those are produced on long, very long, 1,000+ year time scales, right? And then carefully maintained with controlled burns, with planting of certain crops, with weeding out of one and putting in another one. It didn't resemble the monocrop, really simple farms of the European agriculture, right? But it was agriculture, it was science, it was a thing nonetheless. But it was just over a long time scale, right? And so there's actually, a part of it is this kind of short-term thinking, right? Which is that like, well, these things seem normal now, and also there's another argument that people will say is, well, you only YOLO, hashtag YOLO, you only live once. Let's have fun now. Let's go out and party, like those kids in containment. Hey, we just go out and party, and then they all die. Right? I mean, many people did that, right? Millions of people, 28 million people died of COVID already, possibly more. That's the new approximate excess death in the United States. It's going close to 2 million at least. We haven't counted a lot of the strokes and the heart attacks that at least were comorbid with COVID, if not caused by COVID, because of the mass blood clotting that happens and then hits the clogged arteries and the blood vessels in the brain and the heart, and impacts the heart and the brain, and then it causes your death, right? So there's actually been many people that have already succumbed to that. But anyways, so because people have a hard time, so a virus that kills quickly will be locked down, will be contained, and so in some senses, it's actually like there are in existence, not necessarily the T virus like Resident Evil, there isn't necessarily the containment virus, right? There isn't necessarily the zombie virus. There's not like Andromeda strain. I think that's a sci-fi movie, and but it's not the the Stand by Stephen King virus, right? We don't like, they're not necessarily like zombie making sci-fi viruses that are out there, but there are viruses that will kill you like a zombie virus. They already exist, right? But they have been contained. They are extinct in the wild. That means they're only in labs, or they are contained. They are in the wild, but they don't spread very far, right? A lot of these are in Africa, Asia, in limited places. They're not just there; they're also in the Americas as well. But they don't get very far because it's really obvious and it's very deadly, and then people take it really seriously, and then all of the scientific community comes in, they lock it down. The government, the science, the military, if they have to, come and lock that down, stop it from spreading, right? But it's because actually it's not necessarily because they're not virulent, but it's that they don't kill in obvious and fast ways, right? So COVID-19, however, right, is a slow, vague killer. COVID-19, and I don't have time to go back through the whole thing, but long story short, COVID-19 is not the cough, it is not the cold, it is not the sniffles, it is not the loss of the sense of smell even. It is not the soreness in the chest, although that is one of the symptoms, right? But the COVID-19 is not the flu-like symptoms. It is not the cold that people were getting in the beginning of the pandemic, and some still get, but less and less, right? For reasons that we will go into. The COVID-19 is a blood vessel vascular disease. It is a nervous system attacking disease. It is a completely novel. Well, novel in all the important ways. Its spike protein is novel. Although there was American bioweapon labs that did have spike proteins very similar. The cleavage site on the early 2000s American bioweapon is very similar to the COVID-19 virus. But I mean, we don't have any smoking guns on that. It doesn't matter, really, but it will one day, but it doesn't right now. The COVID-19 virus, right, is not a cold virus. It is not a flu virus. It's not a virus that this problem is similar to what a flu does, right? The COVID-19 virus is a virus that destroys every part of your body very imperceptibly. When you are getting blood vessel damage, unlike the zombies, right? Unlike smallpox, unlike Ebola, you cannot see your blood vessels. You can't feel your blood vessels being damaged. When your nervous system is being damaged, right? For a lot of the time, except in very extreme circumstances, you cannot see or feel your nervous system being damaged. When your pancreas is being chewed and eaten away by COVID-19, when your stomach, your lining is being disintegrated, you don't feel it. When your brain tissue is being dissolved, is your neurons and your axons are freezing and clumping up into dead blocks of gray matter that fire in asynchronously and then no function anymore. You can't feel that. You feel these but you will eventually, it takes time. It doesn't happen necessarily. Like people who got the mild COVID virus, it could take weeks, months, even a year later to finally recognize the brain damage, the organ damage, the heart damage, all that blood and nervous damage. It can take years to accumulate over time. The virus is eating your body slowly, right? Imperceptibly. If you wanted to, like I said, if you were a handful of billionaires and you think there's too many people on Earth and you want to liquidate them, COVID is the perfect virus to do it, right? Because fast Hollywood movie virus, really deadly, quick killers can be and are eliminated. What you want is something that everyone gets and they don't know they've got it for years, so that, right, years and years people can be getting it looks like a cold in the beginning, like AIDS, HIV/AIDS feels like a cold in the very beginning. You don't know until you go to the doctor and you realize, oh my God, my immune system is gone. That's why I keep getting every single cold, right? You know how everybody's saying, oh my gosh, I had RSV, then I had tuberculosis the next week, and me and the kids, we all had, we had the scarlet fever. I don't even, what is happening, right? Why are we getting strep A flesh-eating strep bacteria? What the heck? There's 45 times more measles this year than last year in Europe. There's tens of thousands of cases. What in the heck is happening, right? Right? It's too late though. Well, it's not too late to increase the damage, but the damage that was it started circulating in 2020 and 2021. Now you feel the damage to your immune system, to your organs, right? 80 million Americans have long COVID. It's estimated it's about and so of those is you have basically almost a quarter to a third of people have like permanent brain damage or more, organ damage, blood damage, and this is why you have worker shortages among other things, right? All these and so but it's taken years from the time when that gun was fired. Like, you know what I said, Michelle Rodriguez going, hey, you know, Mila Jovovich, I got this virus, but I can't fight you. I'm going to turn zombie in a year and a half. Let me come back a year and a half later, right? But now the virus is back a year and a half later, 2-3 years later, 5 years, 4 years later, right? COVID, I mean, we could discover 10 years from now, there is like a 95% death rate from COVID. In a 10-year window, everyone is dead, right? Kids are dying faster now, right? We could discover that everyone, I mean, I don't know exactly. We're not 10 years out yet, right? But you could discover, oh my God, suddenly everyone's dying really fast, right? Because like I said again, the COVID is the perfect virus if you want to eliminate humans, if you want to thin the herd, eradicate billions of people. I mean, even if not kill them, if you disable people enough, they will take the resources of other people to care for them and it become institutionalized. Like I said in my last video about thinning the herd, right? So even if you're not dead, if you're so disabled, you can't think, you can't talk, you can't speak, you can't protest, you can't strike, you can't fight for Palestine, you can't fight for world peace or, you know, end of colonialism or any capitalism. You can't fight your boss. You can't fight rich people who also have AI drone-powered weapons and a handful of healthy people that program their drones to put you down, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that that's exactly what's happening. I'm just saying, like, you know, a virus that would kill, you know, and they have been studying this for a long time in secret underground labs like Umbrella Corporation, except it's just the U.S. biolabs at Fort Detrick. No, I'm just kidding. You know, if you want to spread a virus across the world and successfully, efficiently infect and kill or disable billions, it has to be a COVID-like virus. It cannot be the Hollywood virus. Because it literally the Hollywood Resident Evil like viruses have been released. This is another problem of the tyranny of cinema, the tyranny of fictional stories, the tyranny of the entertainment industrial complex, which is that which is most entertaining, fun to watch, riveting, keeps the butts in the movie seats, and even reading the books, consuming the television, playing the video games, is not which is actually it is that which is most entertaining, not which is most true, right? And I speak as a professional entertainer, so I may be complicit in this. You know, I try to be more real about the things that I make, though, as much as I can. Try to tell people the truth in the Neofeud Determinus Machina, which has similar events in them. Neofeud 2 definitely deals with pandemic directly as well. The refusal of people to protect themselves. So you see what I'm saying, right? So because COVID-19 slowly kills you, people can't. COVID-19 is a hyper objectified virus, in a sense that it is difficult to perceive the threat of it for average humans, right? Unlike Ebola, right? Unlike smallpox, unlike even cancer. Like, cancer is horrible. Cancer is not contagious. That's the one positive thing about cancer. But you can see the physical tumor even on an X-ray. You can see the damage that it is doing, right? But COVID is massively invisible, right? It is chronologically, its kill rate takes it takes frequently months to years, right? The disabling rate takes years. I just read about a guy who had COVID-19. In the first week he had cold, flu-like symptoms. He had the scratchy throat, lost sense of smell, right? Felt a little tired, achy bones, a little flu-like symptoms, right? Months later, he lost hearing in an ear. What is happening? A year later, he suddenly, he had like shooting pains everywhere. And then 4 years later, he had massive organ failures. Okay, so the damage, and then getting repeat infections multiplies the damage, right? Repeat COVID infection multiplies the damage over time. But any of the infections, again, 100% of COVID patients upon death, 100% of people who have ever tested positive for COVID have had heart tissue, that's like aorta, the valves, like some heart tissue after the autopsy with COVID. So 100% of people have COVID in their heart. No matter how, even if they test negative, every single person that's ever died that we know of has had COVID tissue in their heart organ. So it doesn't go away, right? It sits there. Now, the COVID it's not necessarily like 24/7 just chewing you away like strep A. COVID doesn't kill, like strep A is a good comparison, right? Because strep A does eat the flesh. It destroys flesh. It turns your tissue into necrotic, black and blue dead tissue, right? But the COVID is much more insidious, right? It doesn't like, you're not going to see your hand suddenly go black, right? It just over time slowly just thins it away, like a little chisel tapping and tapping and tapping and tapping and tapping away, right? It can kill you suddenly, like if you exercise too hard, right? Then like it can cause a sudden death. The blood clots can kill you suddenly, but also, right, that's why COVID is a perfect virus for mass killing and disabling people, because the blood clots that the COVID causes, right, those are not those are not written down in the obituary, right? The cause of death is not COVID-19. The cause of death for many people who die from COVID-19 is aneurysm, it is stroke, it is heart attack, right? And what we're seeing, the doctors are seeing, is we're having this. That's why if you really want to get the good number, you have to look at excess deaths, which they're making it very hard to get access to, because the rate at which people are having heart attacks and strokes is going way up. People are saying there's going to be like 140% increase in colon cancers soon, and part of that is because, when everyone was having explosive diarrhea on the planes last year, which is the new manifestation of COVID. One of the newer versions of COVID tends to manifest in the gut, like in your intestines, in your large intestine, your colon, and your stomach, right? And actually, if you want to test for COVID, you're more likely for some of the later COVID strains, like post-Omicron strains. If you test your poop, like your stool, like if you go to take a number 2, if you test that, you're more likely to find a positive, if you're actually COVID positive, than doing a nasal swab. Right, so it's slowly killing you now, and that is the most effective way to kill people, right? Difficult to detect, difficult to prove that it was COVID, right? Right. So the doctors are just saying you don't have COVID, you just died from random cause X, right? You don't have COVID. So this if you're a rich billionaire person, then I mean. If you're a horrible, malicious plutocrat, and you're going to Davos and I hope everybody gets COVID and dies so I can make billions of dollars and liquidate all the people who were going to change this capitalist system, and I'll just rule over, we'll have much less people, and we'll have chaos and war and climate change and death, and we, the last 5% of humans, will just, we the rich remaining humans will just, keep everyone stupid and not class and educated conscious or educated enough to even figure out who did this to them, and we'll have we'll have new feudalism on a depopulated earth. I don't know what, I'm not saying that's the plan, but I mean, if you wanted to, this is the COVID is the virus you would do it with. And so and I've said that already 2 times, so I'll try not say that again, but and so that's what I mean by a slow, vague killer, right? And going back to normal. And so So the people's bias of wanting to go back to normal, right? Because COVID is, this is what right. It's really frustrating for people like myself and Holly and other COVID conscious people who do perceive the hyper object of COVID, the big vast object, which is not imperceptible. If you look at the science, you can see it, right? That's like if you look at the climate science, right? If you drill into 100,000-year histories in the the layers of Antarctic ice, you can see the history of climate change, right? If you look at the graphs, you look at the numbers, you can see climate change. You look at the data on the Amazon rainforest and the world's forests, the rate of the historical temperatures for the last century, right? You can see it. It's not completely undetectable, right? But you have to be looking at the science. You have to be looking at the data that is not you can't go outside and see the climate change asteroid. Like that's the word don't look up about, right? And so similarly, right? You can't see the COVID. When you go outside, you're like, I don't see the dead bodies. I don't see zombies walking around, right? I don't see like all the men in the hazmat suits like in the movies. I don't see the men in the hazmat suits with the blowtorches burning all of the belongings and clothes of infected people. I don't see the plague doctor with the weird mask. I don't see the people running around shooting each other everywhere, being looted and everything on fire, like all the zombie apocalypses, right? But that's not how apocalypses happen, right? They happen slow and people dying and suffering and people taking video of that, and then of the typhoon, the hurricane, the super mega flood, the wildfire, and then after that, and one day they're not taking video, they're in the video, right? And it happens like there's just like less and less people doing jobs. Where'd they go, right? It's like, hey, what happened to all the people that used to be in this restaurant or club, right? How come all my singers are getting sick all the time? Why am I sick all the time, man? We're all sick all the time. This sucks, but it's also normal. That apocalypse looks like everybody actually having the T virus, but it's slowly zombifying you. Your brain is slowly being, your brain takes 2.5 years. Like Michelle, it's not 3 hours like Michelle Rodriguez in Resident Evil. It's like 2.5, 6 years, maybe 10. But your brain is slowly being chewed and chewed and chewed until you can't write video essays and you can't turn in your term paper. And you can't remember that you tested positive for COVID 2 days ago. And that's why, right? That's why you're at home. That's a symptom that people have, is you forget that you even have COVID, right? And so then you forget, you see that. So it's such an ingenious. I mean, it's a perfect way to kill people and disable them, right? Because if you can't even remember that you have COVID, you can't put the ideas in your head together that you have COVID. And this is like dementia, early dementia, Alzheimer's symptoms. These Alzheimer's and dementia in 12-year-olds is becoming normal. Very sad, right? If you can't even remember that you had COVID, how are you going to perceive the hyper object that is? How are you going to perceive this vast, difficult to perceive, stealth, slow burn, 5 to 10 year killer that's COVID, if you can't even remember yesterday? That's why COVID is the perfect virus. So anyway, and so that's death by 1,000 regularities. Obviously, what are the regularities? I gotta go soon, right? What are the regularities, right? I gotta go to my party. I gotta go to my restaurant. I want to not see people wearing masks. I don't want to see a HEPA filter filtering the air, right? Because I want to go back to normal like it was. And so trying to get so leaving the wide scope actual reality that it takes time and thought and effort. You gotta put effort into researching this stuff, and it's not easy, I know, right? And so the bias to the lowest hanging fruit, not thinking very much, and spending your time and energy doing whatever you personally want, which is selfish. Taking advantage of a selfish, unempathetic, capitalist, consumerist society. It's just why the richest Western countries are the ones that actually have the highest COVID rates, right? Because they have as just one example, somebody said in Belgium, you have like barely any masks, and people like no, it looks at you weird if you're wearing one. In Mexico, it's like really normal and accepted for people to be masking in all kinds of settings, especially in healthcare settings. But in Western Europe, United States, nobody's doing any of that. In many of these places, right? And in part is because there's a greater normalcy bias, and there's a lack of collectivism. There's a lack of, sadly, just empathy for other people outside of the self, for many reasons that I talk about on other streams. But what that means is so that desiring to have what you want right now, the normal, right, in my office, in my workspace, is what is killing you, right? And it's gonna take time. It's taking time, but it will kill you. And if it doesn't kill you, you could have a fate worse than death, which is to be locked into a fibromyalgic body and not even be able to scream because your mouth isn't functioning, because COVID has chewed away at the neural wires that would do that. You know, you could be locked in a body. There are many people that are already locked in bodies, suffering daily chronic. If you don't know what chronic pain is, this is another problem. But that's why you have to listen to disabled people and immunocompromised and people that are suffering these illnesses, including chronic fatigue syndrome, which predominantly happens in women, and in a patriarchal system, men haven't acknowledged that, even though there is actual also science, medical concrete biomarkers, but it's been ignored. And long COVID presents very similar. Many long COVID symptoms and the pathology and the physical manifestations are similar to the ME/CFS or chronic fatigue syndrome. And so men have to listen to women. Imagine that. Anyways, because if you don't, you will be in that situation, right? One day, and what we want is a society where everybody is having empathy for all people, including the sick and the disabled, just in general. But also one day, the people, right? It's this paradox. So the people who continue to go about life as normal are the ones who are multiplying the chances. They're rolling the dice each time. They're playing Russian roulette each time with a massive permanent long COVID disability life, right? Going into a very not normal, being forced into a not normal life. In fact, there are many people who say they will spend all day working and they don't have they hurt all day, and they force their smiles in their work. They're forcing smiles they're going on vacation, but they're like laid out, like can't even move. They're like, drinking soup through like a IV on cruise ships, going to the Bahamas, and they can't enjoy it. But they just want to feel normal, like in 2018 and 19, when they always go on their yearly vacation to Hawaii. I'm not going to go into that right now, but to Bahamas. They go on their cruise on the Norwegian Star or the Intergalactic Galaxy Leader. Not anymore though, because Yemen has it. They go on their cruise ship, and they do their vacation. They fly to Paris. They see the Louvre, right? They visit the Parthenon. They go to the beaches. I almost said the beaches of Greece. The beaches of Greece. They go and they get fun in the sun, but they can't do that. But the thing is, those people, they tend to have more resources, obviously. Those things are expensive. That's thousands of dollars. That's that's like half a year of Silver Spook wages to get there. But they still fly on the planes, which are hyper COVID incubators and all kind of disease incubators, right? And then they get to the location and they are like sick. They're so sick. They're like, I just read this post of somebody, this girl was like, I feel so sick. I can barely move. I don't know how I'm going to get my 250-pound luggages onto that plane and how I'm going to enjoy myself in Paris in my 2-week vacation. But I have to do it. My family's going to be there. I have to do it because my family's going to be disappointed if I don't go with them. And I got to tough it out and just have this painful, excruciating vacation where I do nothing but be sick in bed the whole time. Like, people are literally doing that. This is how you see that is a pathology. Like, that is a some kind of mental health disorder. I mean, maybe not the disorder, but that is someone's mental health is not well there. Not the people who are masking like us. Like, it's not like ideal, But I mean, we're not the ones with like that kind of, we have other things that hinder mental health, but you know, people who are, deciding they're going to like put themselves through horrible pain, right? Have RSV and like explosive diarrhea and just go on a cruise, go on vacation and be sick the whole time, not enjoy that vacation because they're so sick. And they got sick because of how much sick people there are on those planes, how much COVID uncautious, disease uncautious people there are on planes in these huge crowds, right? And people who want the normalcy so bad that they will like torture themselves going on these vacations so that they could say they went on the vacation when they were, which they went on and they spent $10,000 on, right? You spending $500 a night to stay in the freaking Four Seasons while you're like, all you can do is lie on the bed, right? And try to not vomit all over yourself in chills, aches and pains, sensitivity to light. You're just like, I'm in the Four Seasons though. I'm in the Four Seasons though. It's so awesome. But my body hurts and I haven't left this room for 2 days. People are, I mean, this is like sad. Like, but that is a pathology. That is a severe, but dude, that's normalopathy. That is the desire to be normal in your office on your vacation, spending this mountains of money to do nothing but suffer so that you could say that you did the vacation that you used to do. Going to that office, making you go back to that office where you didn't want to be there even before COVID because there was misogyny, there was this horrible rat race, capitalist normalization. It was just not a really nice environment. The drive is an hour and a half, 3 hours of commuting both ways. But I have to go to the office because it feels normal to be there. I don't really like any people there, but I got to go to the office. And now you go to the office and then you look like these people. And so, that is normalopathy. That is the mental health disorder. Is not like, oh, why do you have to keep wearing that mask? Why don't you go to a restaurant? That's just like normal mentally healthy behavior in a mass killing, mass disabling, horrific, deadly pandemic that will destroy the rest of your life and will preclude any going back to normal for the potentially 60, 70, 80 years you might have left. Right? I mean, everyone else, you're going to be brain dead, disabled so badly you can't move, or be dead in the next 5 to 10 years at the rate that we're currently going. And I predicted this like years ago. I said like within 5 years, you're gonna have 90+% of people eventually having COVID and then some kind of long COVID. Now the actual long COVID rate is currently, again, it's 25%. 25. 1/4 of the United States has long COVID. That's 80 million people. That was by estimates that I just there's a new census survey. So and we're about 4 years in. That's not the. I think there's actually a higher number than that. But those are the ones that are presenting enough that it's confirmed by a doctor in a hospital that that person has long COVID. But there are many people that are suffering that are not going to doctors at all. They're just oh man, I'm really forgetful now. Like I forget my wife's face sometimes. That's normal. At 27, that's not normal. That's not normal, right? So the total long COVID, I would estimate is higher than that. Now, extreme long COVID is going to be obvious, right? But, and now we're 4 years in, right? And so, if every 4 years you get another, 25%, in 10, 15 years, that's 100% of the population disabled or dead. So this is a real problem, right? This desire to go back to that normal, the inability to see that, we are not in a normal time because it doesn't visually manifest, right? Also, one more important factor, the CDC is literally erasing information. The WHO hid, I already brought this up in the previous stream, but the WHO hid the fact that COVID-19 was airborne, which WHO works for the empire and global, we're just horrible people in the world that make decisions at Davos and at these silly G8 meetings. But the WHO hid the fact that COVID was airborne in 2020. They knew it already. They didn't tell anyone. People should ask like why they didn't tell anyone. And the CDC is hiding comments. The CDC, I'm going to go to some of my links here. This is going to be the last thing we do. The CDC is currently hiding comments. As I said in this post, 80 million Americans have long COVID. It's eating brains like nanoscale zombie armies, killing organs, strangling immune systems. Why? And it's why you're permanently sick, and it is getting worse. 75% of people hide their zombie bite. That's one of the statistics that 75% of people, they hide the fact that they have COVID-19 if they know. Please mask even if the CDC hides comments from LC experts. And obviously that's me wearing a mask, obviously presenting differently because I'm a gender fluid Mahu person. But because we have to visually signify to people that we're still in the situation. This is why they want to talk about masks, right? One reason, and I think I might have brought this up on previous stream. I'm trying to not to repeat myself as much as possible, but take it seriously. So the CDC here, you can see the CDC hiding comments that tell you how to protect yourself. The comment isn't random. It's not a rando. It's not Joe Schmo 654321, right? It's not Katie USA 94381, right? It's not some random account that was started yesterday, a sock puppet. This is a Senate hearing, and it's an irrefutable demonstration. It's kind of like the South Africa hearing on that one place that recently is committing horrible crimes, right? I'm trying to get this, not to get the video deranked. This is a Senate hearing that recently happened. It's irrefutable. And if there's reason to hide the comment and it isn't malice, please tell me. Someone shared with me that this at CDC Gov hid this comment. When I attempted to view the original Twitter claims, it was hidden by the post author. It was not. I stand by it. So this is the Pantea Javidan is one of the people who presented at the Senate hearing, right? And then commented to the CDC, hey, how do we prevent long COVID? Prevent COVID in the first place. And the guy is wearing a mask because masks prevent COVID. Or they prevent all infection to a large, not 100%, but they 95% if you're wearing a N95, KN95, right? And this comment was hidden by the CDC. So the CDC is hiding the U.S. Senate hearings on long COVID. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you, right? The Center for, nowadays I call it, the WHO is the World Horror Organization because it hid the fact that COVID was airborne so that everybody could get sick with the worst mass disabling, silent killing, literal T virus. And the CDC is the Center for Disease Contamination, the Center for Disease Contagion. Okay, because unless the CDC wants everyone to get sick and mass disabled and die, I don't know why you would hide basic facts that have even been confirmed in the United States is not the most honest place. I don't know if you know that. The United States government is not the most honest entity, but even they admitted this. Why would the CDC censor U.S. federal government information? It's a very interesting thing to do. And by interesting, I mean, anyway, you can take whatever you want, but people are trying to figure out why they're doing that. But no, there is a good reason why, because the United States is run by plutocrats who capitalists benefit from people going back to normal. And like I said in the previous video, they don't want, they don't care about long term. They want to care about short term profits, and consuming and going back to work is better than not. And people acknowledging the pandemic and taking it seriously will decrease short term profits, short term work, short term consumption. And long-term controlled thinning, right? Like I did a whole video about, which is that the rich don't particularly need or want humans, other poor humans, plebeians, commoners around. They care about profit. They don't care, and they care about control. They care about power. They care about their power. They don't care about how many people are around. If they cared about the masses, they would give universal health care. If they cared about people, they would stop pushing young, poor people to go fight needless wars, right? If they cared about people, they would build functional infrastructure, and not have a huge prison industrial complex, and cause you know, and have such unaffordable housing. If they cared, they would have done something about COVID-19 in any kind of serious way, which they could have done, but they didn't do that because the rich want COVID-19 to spread to everyone. They don't want to get it. They have UV, right? The rich have UV light that can disinfect COVID in the air, in the particles in the air. They have mandatory very high quality PCR testing, the best they can get of everyone around them. They have all kind of devices. They have the best. They have the Paxlovid. They have all kind of advanced not cures, but they have advanced treatments. They make sure everyone around them, they don't get it as much as they possibly can. The rich, the powerful, right? Government officials. They don't tell you that because they want you to get it. Or, they don't care. Either they want you to get it or they don't care if you get it. One or the other. Some of them want you to get it because they can sell. Even the healthcare corporations literally said mass infections due to COVID has a positive revenue outlook because we can sell the profits we can make from Paxlovid, other COVID medicine that we can charge thousands of dollars a month for, or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for, like cancer drugs. It's people getting COVID is a gold mine for pharmaceutical companies, right? Then they can also sell vaccines. Number one, the vaccines don't stop the infection. They limit the rate of infection, but it doesn't stop infection. Which if you get infected by COVID, the COVID, like I said, right? Like if you feel like you have less of a cold symptoms, that doesn't stop the COVID. You still got the COVID. Like having severe COVID is worse, right? But again, what is severe COVID? COVID is severe. COVID is not if you don't have, it's kind of like saying like, it's like lighting a match and the match burns your hand. Like it's like lighting a match and starting a fire of your house, right? Or lighting a match and starting a bonfire, right? And then, the COVID vaccine prevents burns from the match, right? Oh, I mean, that's nice. But the bonfire is the danger, right? The bonfire is the long-term damage to all your organs, your blood and your nerves and your brain and everything, right? The initial infection. Now, of course, like severe infection, it will impact, how bad the total damage is. But we don't know the long-term COVID damage, right? And like I said, there are people that have that got COVID years ago, and only years later do they discover that now they're getting the real impacts, right? Loss of their, like all the real severe impacts, the heart attack, the cancer, Alzheimer's, stroke, fibromyalgia symptoms, right? That's the true damage, not the cold. Anyway, so just to reiterate, why would the government not tell people? Why would the government hide even the CDC's own advice about masking? Is because there are interests, the plutoc, in a capitalist system, and the money controls the government. And the money can make money. Rich people can make money, maximizing infection, minimizing how many people know about and know the reality about COVID-19. Minimizing information among other people is part of capitalism, right? People not knowing that smoking is bad for you helps tobacco companies. People not knowing that climate change is real helps oil companies, right? So maximum disinformation in general in a capitalist system like the United States and the West is ideal, and that includes COVID. This is another factor, right? So because if everybody knows, oh my gosh, I should take care of myself, oh my gosh, if we had universal health care, then we could have cures for lung cancer and all these things, and I wouldn't have to pay, thousands of dollars a month to not die from my cancer or the COVID that they're going to charge me to survive. I mean, think about it. If you're a pharmacy, if you were a healthcare company, right? You're like, I'm not making enough money charging people thousands of dollars a month to survive cancer. What if everyone had something like cancer and we can charge as much as we want to keep them alive? What if 99% of people get COVID and we can charge even children to keep themselves alive? You got to pay us all the money you have. I mean, it would really make you a lot of money. Think about it. I mean, I'm not saying that's just a thought that you might have as a CEO. and that's not speculation. They literally they've said that in their own reports. 24% of Americans age 18 and over who have received a positive COVID-19 test or diagnosis have experienced symptoms of long COVID. This is just a receipt on that. What I was saying about it's about 25%, 24.4% of people who have had COVID have long COVID. Who's had COVID? 99% of people approximately have had COVID. People who have tested positive for having antibodies for COVID, almost 4/5 of people. I think it's 70+ % of people in the U.S. have antibodies for COVID, and that was actually over about a year ago, so it's higher now. But you might not have antibodies for COVID, but you could still have had COVID, right? So, but if you have antibodies in your body for COVID, and those are people that's not from vaccination, by the way. That was not. I think that was in the not vaccinated people. If you add up everybody plus the vaccinated people, it's like 90-something%. That's where it's difficult. It's difficult to tell exactly how many people have had COVID because A, it's 40 to 60% of all infections are asymptomatic. B, if you've had the vaccine, it will generally produce COVID antibodies for COVID, right? Which is how they're testing that. But anyway, based upon the rates, some estimates are that the average American gets COVID 1.5 times a year, right? So in 4 years, that's where I get my number. The average American has had 6 rounds of COVID already, right? So it's not even like, but there are people who have been very, very, very cautious. So basically, like outside of very, very, very cautious people like ourselves, who don't go much of anywhere, who don't do much of any in-person contact, who have been wearing a mask if you haven't been wearing a mask nonstop for the last 4 years, you probably have already had COVID. And that's like less. That's like 10% of people or less, right? So it's almost everybody has had COVID at least one round, right? And so what that tells us is that this is where that 80 million, because the U.S. is 335 million people approximately, and if basically everyone has had COVID, it's about 80 million people have long COVID, or are experiencing the symptoms of long COVID, approximately. Some states have more than that. So Oklahoma, 1 in 3 people have long COVID. And it is, if you look at the map, right? Oklahoma, Montana, Alabama, Arkansas, North Dakota, Ohio, Wyoming. It's a lot of red states, and it makes sense because not that because the blue states are like in an absolute sense like a better state, but in the conservative circle, it's just like COVID being a cold or not even existing was like the predominant attitude, right? Just don't take any precautions at all, right? For liberals, like it's a real disease, but we should take some precautions, but if we get a vaccine, then we'll be okay, and then we can vax and relax, right? Now, and this is kind of what you would see, right? So just to give you, let's look, see if we can get that map. 24.4% of Americans. So 24.4% of Americans. I'll probably find it like this. Yeah. So if you look at this map, right? So the blue states have a lowest quintile. So California, New York, Washington, Hawaii. It's not a state, but Illinois, Virginia. So so it's lower, right? Because if you do get vaccinated, there's more people would be masking in those places. And more people would take COVID more seriously in those places, but more people will be vaccinated. But again, the vaccinations, like it does lower the severity of the COVID, but it doesn't eliminate it completely. It just decreases the probability and it doesn't work for each upcoming variant either, right? It get less and less effective. There's new variants that come out every 3 months. It's getting faster now as well. They actually say that the COVID evolution is accelerating at this moment, because people keep getting reinfected. The precautions, all of the money that was put out for the pandemic, the stimulus checks, the stay-at-home checks, the quote-unquote COVID fatigue, is more like laziness, basically, and this lack of will to do the right thing, and mass willful ignorance or instilled ignorance by the power ruling classes. whatever it is, it means that more people are getting infected, and then the virus is evolving. The virus needs, immunocompromised bodies. You know what's interesting is COVID makes its own food. That's another thing. COVID makes its own petri dishes because COVID immunocompromises you. So then when the next variant of COVID comes, the immunocompromised body is the reactor core to generate new strains of virus. The immunocompromised body. And so the immunocompromised, but COVID makes immunocompromised people because it acts like HIV/AIDS. So COVID actually makes the food. COVID turns human beings into umbrella corporation laboratories to make new variants of COVID. Even more reason why we have to be masking and taking as much. Just don't get any kind of illness at all. Because you have HIV/AIDS, which is what COVID does. It destroys your immune system. If you've had it, most people have had it, right? Everyone should be masking. It's like, do you want to stop getting sick? I mean, even not with COVID, you want to stop getting RSV, flu, tuberculosis, sick 12 times a year. The average person is getting sick 12 times a year. Average kids are getting sick 12 times a year now. It's supposed to be 3 to 3.5. Adults 2. People are getting sick like every 2 weeks. That is because everyone has the equivalent of HIV/AIDS plus brain damage and organ damage. It's not normal. I don't know if I said that on the stream, but that's another important point. It is not normal to be getting sick all the time, right? And what this graph is showing is that, there are areas that are losing a lot of the more total long COVID damage, which is this mass disabling, and these are some of the more severe worker shortages are in the more states in the red. However, everywhere is having it, right? The lowest quintile, right, is 16 to 23. I mean, 20%. That's still, 20% is that is a 20% knockout of your workforce is millions of people in California, right? In New York, if you got 20% of your workforce gets, down for the count, you talk, it's over 1 million people. I forget the exact population. California, that's 6 million people, right? So, we're doing good. You're not doing good. You're doing slightly better. It's worse. Yeah, it is worse in Oklahoma. It's worse in Wyoming. But over time, if you think you're safe now, right? If you think you're safe now, a lot of this is chalked up. I was actually chalk a lot of this up to, there's a higher vaccination rate and people wore masks for longer in the bluer areas. But now you're not doing that. Also, the vaccines that used to be free, they're not free anymore. They cost hundreds of dollars. People can't afford to stay home. People can't afford to get some of these things, vaccines. People can't afford to, get, even if they wanted to, and a lot of them don't want to. Right? Remember, Biden said the pandemic was over. So what I predict is that the difference between the red and the blue states is going to start to even out as the level, the mediocre, but better than red. The Democrats mediocre but slightly better than the Republican rate of taking the pandemic seriously is leveling out. And so what you're going to see is all the states are going to start turning red. And in the sense of everyone's long COVID rate, the rates of all states will increase and they'll start evening out over time. That's what I think anyway. I cannot guarantee that is a speculation, but that's what I think will happen. Measles cases soaring worldwide as WHO reports alarming 45-fold rise in Europe. Like I said earlier, so if you want to get measles, don't wear a mask and keep on infecting yourself with an immune compromising virus like COVID. This is a massive problem. There's outbreaks in the U.S. already in schools. They say 1,800 schools are currently at high threat of measles outbreaks. But in Europe, there's major ones. Among other things, everything is breaking out, not just measles. Every virus, and every illness, every bacteria. Okay, I already showed that one. Okay, because I showed the measles one. Okay, just real quick though. 1 out of every 3 people in Oklahoma has long COVID. Wake up for all those people who think long COVID is rare or that they will never get it. Everyone is vulnerable. Millions are added every year. How long do you think you will be able to avoid it? Wear your freaking mask. The silent organ damage found in more than half of long COVID patients warrants new study. A new study found that organ damage persists in long COVID patients, even in those initially not severely infected. Like I said, right? Oh, you got a vaccine and it was mild. That doesn't matter, right? Your heart. Do you need a heart to pump your blood to live? You are vulnerable to COVID, whether it was mild, asymptomatic or not. Like I said, the COVID that you got, it might not kill you for a year or 2 years, but you know, eventually it will kill you. It will, and if it doesn't directly kill you, it will contribute to your death, like AIDS. AIDS and HIV do not directly kill you, but they give the conditions to pneumonia to kill you, right? Or to even a common cold, because they disable your immune system, right? So, but yeah, this is where a recent study shows that silent organ damage sparks fear that the virus is evolving. The research published in the Journal of Medicine, 59% of COVID patients had single organ impairment a year after initial symptoms, with 29% experiencing multi-organ impairment. So more than half of people have at least one organ impaired, and 30% have multiple organs impaired. And then this mirror has too many ads in it, so I gotta close it. UK sites are the worst for some reason. But yeah, so that you can go read about that yourself. Oh, here's something else in a positive sense. So, like, you know, the opposite of normalopathy, right, is new reality acceptance. I gotta come up with a cooler buzz term than that. You know, it's like, it's not normalopathy. It's you know, the alternate health, you know, alternate acceptance. You know, think of alternative music, because, you know, they used to call it norm. They used to call them sheeple and normies back in the 90s, but it's, you know, so, but our so there are dojos like this one, run by Doug Aoki, who is and this dojo photos like his always trigger martial arts bros, but really, if wearing a mask is way too hard for you, you're not as tough as these three. So this is actually important, right? Which actually that Doug is a karate instructor. Asians, like East Asians in particular, are very highly likely to take these diseases seriously. This masking is totally normal. It's been that way for some time, and the collective health is important. The collective thinking and collective prioritization is more emphasized than the individualism, rugged or otherwise, which is more of a Western value, right? And so wearing the mask, and it's important. It's like certain martial arts bros. It's, as I said, men less likely to mask and take the collective health seriously than women. Also, there's a gender aspect there as well. But either way, in fact, actually, Doug's karate dojo enrollment doubled. He actually doubled the enrollment when he had mask rules inside the dojo. Because guess what? People, like, there are many people who actually want to be around people who think of collective health. You know, self-defense also includes self-defense and defense against pathogens, right? And so actually the enrollment doubled. So that's something, you know, I was thinking, like, I mean, maybe there is something, but I was like, I feel like if somebody could open, like in California or New York or somewhere, you know, in like a, you know, or everywhere, if somebody opened like 100% masking clinic or hospital, that every single person here masks and all the ER doctors mask, everybody does. There's many hospitals that don't, nurses that don't. Even with the mask mandates that came back, they're like gone now, right? It's ridiculous. It's like almost unthinkable. In 2018 and 19, it was just normal to have the intensive care child cancer ward, the ER emergency room would have masked doctors, but nobody's masking in many of these places now. So if there were, like, we are the COVID conscious, like COVID reality accepting, basic medical science accepting hospital, it seems ridiculous to say, hey, we are a hospital in the US or Europe or Canada. We are a hospital that follows medical science, don't you all have medical degrees in science or something? This is actually interesting, right? Number one, a lot of that science is racist, out of date, incorrect, based on colonial capitalist racistic preconceptions about women, or patriarchal conceptions about women, black and brown bodies. They're not necessarily for health, including the lack of diagnosis and treatment for ME/CFS. And also the fact that you're 2.5 times more likely to die if you're a black woman and pregnant in a hospital than if you're a white woman, because of racism. And anyways, but if there was a hospital, it's like, there's a thread somewhere. I don't have time to get it right now. But if you are it's actually a black woman saying, like, I have had horrible times with the mainstream prestigious doctors, Mayo Clinic doctors, doctors in the fancy, clinic, or just average American hospitals. Like, my ideal doctor, because they don't listen. Their science, their medical science is not updated. They have like old, again, it's the kind of racist, sexist, colonialist textbooks that don't take into account women's bodies. They still use like this, like, not accurate statistics like BMI. They have all these outdated. They haven't updated about COVID also, because COVID is an evolving science. So these doctors that have been resting on their laurels, right? The reality is, like, if you're a white man and you got a degree in anything, the amount of effort you have to put in is many times less than somebody who isn't, right? And that's why even Donald Trump hired a woman to be his architect. But anyway, so it's this, but also it's like you tend to be stagnant in your thinking. You're a mediocre doctor and you're stagnant in your thinking, but you have prestige, kind of like Harvard graduates, right? The people get a gentleman's B for having a pulse in math, science, and history class, right? The quality of the thinking is not very good. How rich and powerful, and whether you were related to Mark Zuckerberg, and whether you got to rub shoulders with future presidents and CEOs, right, and generals and militaries, that's all that a fancy, Ivy League degree qualifies you for. But those are the people that tend to be the leading doctors, right? And so it actually applies. The Mayo Clinic, these fancy Cleveland Clinic doctors, right? And so what you want is in somebody that's dealing with the current pandemic situation is a doctor who is indigenous, black, and is embracing the updated science. Young, non-white, non-male medical specialist or doctor is actually preferable, because they're most likely to have updated on all the current and evolving science. And it's actually proven that that's the people who actually are taking COVID seriously, like that, those are the people that are actually saying the truth about what's going on. Well, we're not getting a lot of accurate information. I mean, the CDC is literally contradicting basic long COVID science right now. So we don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be involved in that. So anyways, so this is dojos. I mean, restaurants. They say actually one reason why restaurants are kept open, because restaurants are for the average citizen of the U.S. or in Western countries, the average citizen, average person, the biggest the biggest discretionary spending, the biggest non-essential spending. That means like toys, movies, going out vacations, buying random stuff on Amazon, guitars, or clothes, party clothes. The biggest discretionary spending is restaurants, right? So actually, it's capitalism. That's why they want you to go. So keeping people going to restaurants is about keeping people spending, and vacations and tourism. There's a lot of restaurant spending. Those are big ticket, play spending that benefits capitalism, right? So actually huge concerts, restaurants, trips. Those are the big ticket items that make a lot of money under a capitalist corporate system. That's all. So there's and restaurants and bars are the two places where you will see normal, which is sense you'll see people doing anti-science things, like completely not masking and spreading all kind of viruses and COVID freely in restaurants and bars. People like going to restaurants and this is important. Restaurants and bars are now kind of bastions of the COVID unconscious. It's 2019 people, right? The anti the COVID science people, right? People just want to like ignore it all, because in a restaurant you're only gonna find other people who absolutely do not take the pandemic at all seriously. Every single one. right? Because if you're going, you're like, I can't go into a restaurant, indoor in particular, indoor restaurant. If you have a takeout place and people buy the food and they take it somewhere else, that's a little different. But indoor sit down restaurant and bar, where you're indoor in that bar, those activities are like basically guaranteed you're going to have high risk exchange of aerosolized particles and droplets because of the nature of those activities, right? And those are places people go to, restaurants and bars, and they keep going to them so they can keep on being surrounded by that normal, the quote unquote 2019 normal, which is not normal. But the reality is actually some people, not, I wouldn't say the majority, but many people are doing their best to keep themselves safe and live in 2024, but they don't go there. They might go shopping. They go shopping at odd hours, like we do. They might go to the Walmart. They go to get some basic toiletries. They go do like laundry. They go to park maybe, right? They go to the beach. They do outdoor activities in nature and other things that's not high risk, right? Right? But you see how, so the people who are doing the normal, they're only encountering other people like them. They have their own little echo chamber. I should say they have their own little survival. They have their own little snog airborne saliva exchange chamber. It's called a bar in a restaurant. And so that's another phenomenon that kind of keeps this normal like the nasal passage, which is a reservoir for the SARS-CoV-2 pathogen, right? The restaurant and the bar is a reservoir of normalopathy, of 2019 pre-pandemic, no longer existent life. Anyways, okay, last though. Dojo, we found blood vessels. We donate blood. We can't donate blood because we have long COVID, but they don't care about diagnosing and testing people who may have long COVID. So how many people who actually have long COVID have been donating their blood without knowing? Is this a FAFO in the making? It absolutely is. If you go to a hospital and you need blood donated, and 99% of people have had COVID, and 100% of people have COVID in their hearts upon death and autopsy, what is the probability you're getting COVID blood when you have an operation, when you break your leg and you need a blood transfusion? What is the probability the blood that you're getting has COVID blood, has COVID inside of it? Very high. That is absolutely a fuck around find out. So I mean, what I would look for is Bill Gates has personal reservoir of like underground clones of people who have never had contact with the Earth's surface that are like 2 miles beneath the Earth's crust, or like 2 miles beneath in the Earth crust. Bill Gates has reservoir of absolutely untainted COVID human blood for his personal transfusion, so he can live forever with his 120 meds that he takes, along with the Singularity University dorks and the long-termists. Anyways, COVID babies found a 22-point drop in IQ. COVID babies found to have 22-point drop in IQ versus pre-pandemic baby studies shown as virus shown to cause serious brain disease. You don't typically see things like that, but outside of major cognitive disorders, says the researcher who discovered a huge drop in COVID baby IQ. Preceding the pandemic, the mean IQ score on the standardized test. Now, of course, IQ itself has problems, but there are things that you can, other things that you can use, and these are like very rough estimates. But the mean IQ score on standardized tests for children aged between 3 months and 3 years of age hovered around 100. But for children born during the pandemic, that number tumbled to 78, according to a peer-reviewed study that's yet to be peer-reviewed. Anyways, but this is something we can see. Even teachers are saying in classrooms. There are kids who are like going into freshman year, 6 months into their freshman year of high school. They're forgetting what they learned like 3 months ago or 2 weeks ago, and they're like crying in class because they can't remember basic, like how to do like do a basic algebraic expansion, or like how do I do double digit multiplication. I can't remember. We just learned it, but I can't remember. And the children's, I talked about this repeatedly. Like, this is another outcome, which is that COVID, we were told, oh, we can't infect children. This is ridiculous. It's like saying, oh, children can't get colds. Like, what are you talking about? Children, do children have blood vessels? Right? That's the only thing you need to know, right? We were told that COVID couldn't, I think one day people will go back and find like who originated all of this absolute utter nonsense. COVID isn't airborne. You knew that WHO had reports that previous SARS viruses, very similar to COVID-19, were all airborne, right? Who originated the lie that COVID wasn't airborne, right? Who originated the lie, right? That COVID doesn't infect children? That's like saying the kids can't get colds or kids can't get flus. It's a freaking SARS virus, right? No, these were lies so that rich could make tons of money and everyone else could get sick and disabled and die. Children are being massively harmed by COVID-19. It is horrific child abuse. It is an atrocity committed on billions of young people that everyone is engaging in that isn't protecting children by masking, distancing, preventing everyone getting sick as much as absolutely possible. The fact that hospital workers are delivering babies without masks is like unbelievable. As I said earlier, the Netherlands they're euthanizing autistic people in the Netherlands who are citing lack of social interaction as the reason. This is not compassion. This is refusing to acknowledge society's cruelties and centuries of teaching human beings to hate themselves. People, you will be remembered as monsters of our time. You can pretend it's not society's fault. People feel disposable, but the clock on your bigotry is ticking. In Canada, we're not going to stop with a pause for made for just mutual assistance in death for mental illness in Canada. Hatred is anyway. This is a long discussion, but basically there is hospitals are using mental health disorders and just disability as grounds to basically end your life. So think about that. When you get long COVID itself, because it is a disease that causes mental and physical disability. Is that I could see like in 5 years, at least most Western healthcare settings are just putting everyone down. Who is like, well, you're taking up too many resources. Oh, you got COVID 5 times and now your arms and legs don't work. You're taking too many resources from our dwindling resource society. With half of the population isn't working anymore. You owe it to the rest of your fellow humans to end your own life. This is where the U.S. and Europe and Canada are going. Certainly, Western capitalist countries. This is where they're going. They're just gonna push everybody to you're autistic. That's not even COVID. That's just normal. This is normal human with different characteristics. That's just like those are just different kinds of people. Autism is not like a thing that has to be cured, but that's the way they're treated. This the Netherlands, by the way. This is like your great Scandinavian social democratic. These are the bright shining lights and the hope for the Western world, right? These so-called advanced European social democracies with their great social safety nets. How's the social safety net doing when you're putting down autistic people like rabid dogs now? Apparently, that's what Netherlands is. That's Netherlands straight up is doing this right now. So I've been really curious about pre-pandemic illnesses in the children. The line, this is finally the line BH pushes is that it's normal for kids to be sick 8 to 12 times per year, like I said. But I wonder where that comes from. The reality is, kids would normally be sick 3 to 4 times per year. If you hear anything about kids, we're supposed to be sick every month. Kids are sick every month. That's normal. No. By the time you get to 5 to 9 years old, before you even start your first grade, you're down to like three and a little sick days a year, or sicknesses a year. That's once every 4 months. That's like once in the fall, once in the spring. The whole semester. You shouldn't be getting sick. Sick. But that's how kids are. That's how it's been. Sick this week, sick next week. 2 weeks later, another illness. That's not normal. And this is the smoking Mandela effect. I call it the inverse Mandela effect, where everyone is remembering the truth, but the mass mainstream Western narrative is the lie, right? And so people are forced to misremember what they actually remember correctly. Where the Mandela effect is everybody misremembers the past wrong. I call it the inverse Mandela effect, where everybody is, we always were sick. We're always sick. When you were little, you were sick too. In the 1960s and 70s, we were all sick when we were kids. No, 3 to 4 times per year. By the time you get to the age like 14, 15, you're sick 2 times a year. So once every 6 months. So if you're an adult and you're getting sick 10, 12, 15 times a year, You have the equivalent of HIV/AIDS. Your immune system is dying. Your T cells are disintegrating. They're not working anymore. Okay? It's not normal. It's not normal. But millions and millions of people, just billions of people now, are reporting getting sick all the time. Not normal. Okay? Anyway, that's it. The virus is still evolving at a credible rate. Thanks everybody for watching. If you appreciate these updates and education, we try our best to educate based upon what we know here. And now it's really important because where we're at, many things are happening that are really important, but this was one of them. And so consider direct support to Silver Spook Cooperative through the Ko-Fi link, and any amount really does go to help us out to keep doing this very important education that we try our best to do. If you would like to support us in an ongoing fashion and get access to the Silver Spook Discord, behind the scenes of what we're working on, and the Silver Spook University, you can become a Patreon member at any level, and it really does help us out as well. Silver Spook University is not a bunch of screenshots from the Resident Evil movie. That's just anyway. Silver Spook University is a place where we answer the question, what do you need to know today? What do you teach your children today? And lies about past and present and future permeate formal schooling, modern books and media, and visions for the future are shrouded in fog of war and collapse. And so this is a indigenous left education combining decolonized history, present struggles, imagined futures, cultural analysis on history, economics, politics, hard and soft science, and things that they don't teach you in school. And many times in university that people need to know about those topics from our perspective, or in my perspective in particular, as a Native Hawaiian activist, educator, and etc. And also science fiction writer. But that's, anyway, Silver Spook University, get access to it when you become a patron. And also you can help us out by grabbing these Silver Spook games, like Neofeud. Neofeud is a cyberpunk adventure game, dystopian cyberpunk adventure game in the vein of Blade Runner. It is a game I spent 2.5 years working on to try to produce a authentic send up of Terminator, Matrix, and it's not. There are horror aspects to Neofeud. Terminator is in part a horror movie, but it's also a game. It's anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist cyberpunk adventure game that if you have a second to leave even a very short review, it is massively appreciated if you can do so, because it does help us get the game discovered in the algorithm. Also, you can help us. You can grab Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux. Neofeud is also available without you getting Steam. If you don't want to install that platform, you can just get the standalone version on itch. Also, there's many other games on here that you can all get in the Silver Spook bundle. And of course, Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity, and this is the story in the Bible from Mary's perspective that is a critique of that right-wing evangelical Christian culture. And this book is free, or you can donate some money when you pick it up. Also, you can follow Silver Spook Games at octanon.social, Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social, and of course on Twitter you can follow at Silver Spook Guy and at Silver Spook Games minus the E in silver for the games related stuff. And we're also on all the social medias, or most of them. And at Terminus C, Terminus Cyberstar is a cyberpunk RPG immersive sim that I am the content director and lead writer of. And also Holly, you can follow at the Tech Fairy. Holly is, of course, a partner here in the business, and also in the marriages and the children having and children protecting as well, and wearing masks. And Holly wears also many hats for the Twitch stream music and variety show K-Nix show. Parent and caregiver of two Native Hawaiian children here with myself. Writer, educator, a Sapphic queer person, mask wearing MECFS haver, speaking of those things. And so don't forget to, you can follow Holly there as well. And thank you to all the people on this list of people right there. Without your support, it does become very difficult for us to keep doing this work. So thank you so much for your continued patronage in this in our work. Yes, and yeah. So don't forget to put where take all the precautions that you can. Share this information. there's lots of lots of other resources that Holly has pointed to. I'm sure. Do check out all of those out, and make the informed, good decisions on all of these things, because it will impact the future, and whether normalopathy and slow killing, stealthy viruses, which are the only kind that will massively damage and kill billions of people, whether those continue to harm us or not. Anyways, have a good one, and we'll see you later.